Hey everyone, this is Jon McNaughton, and I'm your host of the Patriot Art Show. And I'm in my studio right here, and just what a crazy day this has been. Lots of things in the news. I did a sketch this morning that I pre-recorded, and I'm going to talk about that as we go. Today's big thing in the news, a lot of it has to do with Canada. So I wanted to draw my favorite Canadian, which happens to be Jordan Peterson. So that's what we're going to be sketching. Now, I got to say right now, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you click that button so that you know about these special shows that we do. Every time it's something different. And I'm enjoying this as I share my art with you. So make sure you subscribe. Also, at the end of this, show, I'm going to be answering questions regarding my NFTs. They're called McNifties, and it's the Trump Legacy Collection. So if you've got questions about that you've been dying to ask me, just put it in the comments and I'll answer those at the end as best I can. If you've got questions about anything else, I'll try to get to that during the show. So with that, let's go ahead and get to the sketch. Why don't you put that on there? Thanks. This is my helper and producer, Seth Adam Smith, and appreciate all that he's doing for me to get this show going. I'm doing this sketch I've sped it up at about half the time. So I don't quite draw this quickly, but this is a double time. This way you can kind of see how I build this. And this is Jordan Peterson's eye. And the eye is the window to the soul. And this guy in my opinion, has a pretty remarkable soul. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. He's the one that wrote the book. I think it's called 12 Rules for Life. Is that right,
Yep,
Seth?
that's correct. That's correct. 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah, but what really made him famous was his interaction he had with a news show that he was invited on a few years, maybe 3-4 years ago. I can't remember how long it's been. And they were trying to box him into a corner regarding his refusal to use certain pronouns in Canada. It was illegal to, and at least at the college where he was, he wasn't willing to use certain pronouns for transgender or whatever. And they were trying to box him in a corner on it. And the guy, it was a glorious takedown. If you haven't seen the video on YouTube where he talks to this woman and really explains his position on why you should have a total freedom of speech to choose your own pronouns, for heaven's sakes. So that's when I first noticed Jordan Peterson, and in the time since, I found him to be a very thoughtful and interesting person to follow. And in light of what's going on in Canada right now, I thought this would be a good person to highlight and do a sketch of. You can see how quickly it's coming along. Hey, thanks, Diane. I appreciate those kind of compliments, and I'm sure I'm some people's least favorite too. Politics is a pretty dirty business, in terms of having to deal with lots of negativity. And I think that I like to draw and paint political subjects because I'm not only am I interested in it, but it's so relevant to our lives. And when I've been watching the news and seeing what's happening in Canada, especially today with Justin Trudeau announcing executive powers, emergency powers to shut down the trucker convoy and basically make it illegal for the people in Canada to speak their mind and to have free speech is just so disheartening. And so I just feel so sad for the people over there in Canada. And we're watching, your brothers and sisters here in America are watching what's happening happening over there. And we're praying for you. And we take it very serious because these kind of globalist actions could be on our doorstep. And we need to support our brothers and sisters over in Canada. Oh, thanks, Anna. I'm glad you're here too. I appreciate all of you who come on the show. For a long, long time, I never really shared a lot of this part of what I do. I simply would draw and paint, and then you would see the finished results. But here you can see how I go through the process of building these drawings and these paintings that mean so much to me. Not to mention Jordan Peterson has an interesting face. I could see him as a gunslinger with Kermit the Frog voice. That's rude.
That's the funniest
The guy is so interesting to listen to. He literally, he makes me think about things sometimes a little differently than I had before, and that's what I like about him. He has an interesting background, being a psychologist, a professor at the Toronto University. Definitely a free-thinking individual. He doesn't take his freedom of speech lightly. He's really a fascinating person, and I've never seen anybody handle reporters and news people quite the same as this guy. Thanks, Marjorie. I agree. And so I think that it's just really fascinating to watch him, and I think that part of the reason he's so good at it, and I got a kind of a teaser listening to an interview he did once where he explained why he was so successful talking to that reporter that I mentioned earlier, where he had that epic takedown. And he said that all he did was, when he realized that she was trying to trap him, he simply reverted to his psychologist self, when he used to sit down with these people that were psychotic, and he just started thinking, okay, what is this person doing? And he knew exactly what they were doing and was able to prepare for it. And I just thought that was fascinating. This guy, he knows people. He understands the psychology behind, the kind of people that would be either narcissistic or controlling, what have you. And it makes him brilliant with what he does. I think he would have been an interesting person to see at a young age. I bet he was very quiet. I bet he was very thoughtful, as he looked at the world around him. And, I bet you that in his wildest dreams, he never thought that he would be this kind of an influencer in the world when it comes to thought and when it comes to, freedom and such. He doesn't consider himself alt-right. He doesn't consider himself necessarily conservative. He just believes in freedom. I've listened to him talk that way. And so he really hates it when people try to pigeonhole him for his political beliefs, which I respect as well. A lot of people try to say, well, Jon, you're just a Republican. You just do what you're told. You're painting propaganda. When I hear that, I'm offended often because I'm not doing that. I'm not doing what I'm told. I'm not here to paint someone else's vision. These are my ideas. These are my feelings as an artist. And that's why I paint them. That's why I draw them, because they mean something to me. And so here I am. I'm kind of finishing up Jordan Peterson. You can't see the bottom of him, but that's going to come up in a second here. So Anna says, people like him are what true leaders look like. I agree. I don't feel like Jordan Peterson is trying to, fit a mold to get more followers. I feel like the guy's authentic. He really cares about Canada. He cares about the people that he teaches, his circle of influence. And I think that's where it all starts as Americans. When we care about each other and we want to see our children grow up in prosperity, we don't want, thanks, Amanda. We don't want to have, these bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. telling us everything that we have to do, how to raise our kids, how to take care of our physical bodies, you name it. It's ridiculous. And I'm sick of it as an artist. I'm absolutely fed up with all of it. And so I try to plan my paintings very carefully during the year so that I can address things that I think are important. Um, so you can't see, I recorded this while I was drawing, and I don't watch my camera, so you'll see what it looks like when I pull it up here. There we go. So you just missed me drawing the necktie. Yeah, there we go. Filling that in. This was really fun to draw. He's been on my list for somebody to draw for quite a while now. And, I think he said recently regarding the protest, I think it was just today, he said that things have taken a turn in Canada. And for those of you that, you know, have families and such, you may want to consider, I'm not quoting him exactly, but he said you may want to let things kind of sit for now because it's about to get ugly in Canada. You have two sides of the coin. You have those who are radical on one side and those that are radical on the other side, and that makes for a dangerous situation.
Well, what he said was he was very supportive. He said that was great that you guys have done a lot of good, and he's like, but right now we're seeing uh the angriest on both sides are the ones that are going to linger
Right.
in this fight, and so he expressed concern about that this morning, and encouraged the truckers to do what was best for them and their families.
Absolutely. And I think he was truthful in saying that. I mean, can you imagine how you would feel if you were a Canadian right now and you just had your rights stripped away from you? Um, GL says, I think the majority of people are fed up around the world with it all. Problem is that our voices are not heard because of MSM Press. Peterson is one who is able to speak out. Thank goodness. True. He has a big voice and people listen to what he has to say.
uh,
He
and
is my favorite Canadian at this point.
and that's a good place for this quote.
Yeah, yeah. So I always put a quote with my sketches because I think it adds something to the memory. This is from my sketchbook, and so I find it a really good, relevant quote. Free speech is not just another value; it's the foundation of Western civilization. It really is. It was so important they put it in the Bill of Rights. You have to have free speech, and that's followed up closely with the Second Amendment part, which is the right to bear arms. And the only way you're safe as a country is to have the ability to speak out against your government on issues. Otherwise it's tyranny. And as Americans, we should never stand for it, and we should support everyone in the world who is having their free speech taken away from them, regardless. And we should not support people that suppress that, because that puts you in the category of countries that are communist, fascist, regimes in the past that have led to just horrible atrocities. So I support the people in Canada, and I support Americans that are for free speech. So, do we have anybody that wanted to ask any McNifty questions?
I didn't see any of those questions come in.
Okay.
But what I
Well,
find fascinating about, I wanted to share this. I like I said, I lived in Alaska, and I drove. We would drive through Canada all the time. We got a lot of Canadian heritage, and he comes from a very, 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 very small town in Canada, and I drove by that town a lot. And what fascinates me is that this person, even though he came from a very small town and would seem like an obscure person with no real shot at contributing much, I guess. Even
mhm,
he makes that claim, is that because he decided to speak, he's made a significant difference in the world. And so it's free
yeah,
speech. It is the foundation not only of Western civilization, but of who you are, your ability to speak. That's the reason why, in the beginning was the word. I mean, it does start God. It starts with God being able to speak,
Right, right. That's an interesting point of view. It makes sense why he was so offended when they started trying to tell him what pronouns he could use. I mean, that's just so silly, telling people, like, the most basic words, he, she, uh, that you can't use certain words because it's so offensive that we have to make laws against that. I mean, right now, there's so many laws against offending people. I mean, people are getting canceled on different social media platforms because they're considered offensive. I mean, that's not even American to have those kind of laws. It's insanity, and it really frustrates me. So anyway, that's my sketch of Jordan Peterson, and I hope you've enjoyed our little conversation on the Patriot Art Show. There'll be another one on Wednesday where we'll dig into some more current events, and I'll have another sketch. So appreciate you being with us tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.